What's up everybody, welcome back. In today's video I want to take a look at adding new options for hosting a game, so we can add a friends only or a password option and that way control what players can enter the lobby. So that's what we're gonna do today. If you want to get your hands on the project files, you can become a member of the channel or become a Patreon, and then you will get access to the premium channels in the Discord and also a download for the project. So let's start making our new options for hosting. First of all, I want to have a quick look at the Friends button that we added in the previous episode. So if we open our Steam Friends button over here, we actually have a text block that doesn't have a text assigned. So I was kind of confused with the online status over here. So this will be updated in Event Construct. And for this text block, we can simply type in what we want to show up. So I'm going to say joinable. And depending on if we can actually join the player, this will be shown or hidden. So that should be good to go. And then I also want to take a look at the actual friends list. And I want to disable the invite and join game button if we enter the menu and don't have a friend selected. So we're going to go to the event graph. And first of all, in event construct, all the way at the beginning, we're actually enabling the invite button. So we're going to change that up, move this over a little bit. And we want to grab the invite button and the join button. And we're going to disable those on construct. So plug them in between here. And make sure they're actually disabled. And then we can go inside the highlight selected button function. And at the end over here, we can add a little note to enable the invite button. So if we grab the button invite and then do set enabled, plug it in over here, and we can simply grab the selected button index and check if this is greater than or equal to 0. And if we plug that in, that will make the button enabled depending on if we have a button selected or not. And the actual join button is already being enabled or disabled if we create the Steam Friend widget. So over here, if we click the button, not if we create it, then we enable and disable the join button. So that's already working. Okay, so that was a little side note over there. Now let's start making the private and password options. So to create our new options, we want to start off in the GameInstance. So let's open up the GameInstance and we want to take a look at the create multiplayer session over here. So we're going to add options to the extra options array over here. So we're actually going to add 3 more. So click the plus sign 3 times. And if we drag off the first one, we can look for a bool and make a literal session property with a bool. So let's select this one. And over here, we can simply come up with a name for our option. So this is kind of the same like the option string that we used in the game mode. And so for this one, we could say something like friends only. And then we're simply going to plug in the bool onto the event so we can pass it on. And we want to add a second bool. So let's copy and paste this node and plug it in to the array as well. So this is going to be the use password. And again, we want to drop it onto the event. And then we want to add a third option, and that's actually a string. So let's look for a string and let's add that one. And this is going to be the actual password. So we're simply going to say password over here. And again, pass it on to the event. So let's rename these. This is friends only. And then we have use password. And the last one is the actual password. There we go. So this is good to go. We can compile and save that. And now we need to make a bunch of changes in our multiplayer menu. So let's go to the widgets folder and open the widget blueprint multiplayer menu. Main menu, multiplayer menu over here. So first of all, we need to add the options to the actual widget. So if we can go to our lobby menu, then we can actually copy some stuff. So let's open our lobby menu. And in here, I'm gonna grab the checkbox with the seamless travel and the border that's around it. So we end up with a border, a horizontal box, a checkbox, and some text on top of that. Let me double check. A border with a checkbox. Yeah, that should be good. So if we simply copy this border, that's not a variable, right click and copy it. Go back to the multiplayer menu, and in here we want to go to the vertical box for the border host game. So we have a vertical box, some text, a border, and then a second vertical box. You want to select the second one over here, and we're going to right click and paste it. So there we have the first checkbox. So we want to do that a second time. So again, select the vertical box and paste it in again. So we have two new options. And then we need to have an input for the password. So if we select this input over here with the border, and then right click, copy it. And again, we're going to paste it in the vertical box. So that should be this one, and then right click and paste it. So that's good to go. Now we want to increase the size of this border. So that's the border host game. Well, let's make it 400 maybe. Oh, that's the width. Sorry, 340. And let's make it 250. Let me quickly check what I did. So I have it set to 308 in my other project. There we go. Okay, so we have the options in here. Let's make sure that everything is named properly. So first do the text in here. This is friends only. Nope. And then for the second one, we have use password. And we can select the input box over here and change the hint text. So this can be the password. There we go. And we also want to change the actual variable names in here. So this is the checkbox for the friends list. Friends only, I'm sorry. And then we have the checkbox use password. And then for the input over here, input password. So that should be good to go. So let's compile this and let's go to the graph. We want to make some changes in there as well. So I'm quickly going to grab the correct nodes in here. And we actually forgot something inside of the designer, sorry. So let's go back to the designer. I also want to add a header to our search box for the servers. So we can display inside of the list over here if those options are actually enabled or not. So if we grab the scroll box over here, the scroll box server list, not the border, then we're going to right click on the scroll box and wrap it with a vertical box. So that's over here, vert box. And then inside of the vertical box, we want to add some text headers so we can actually see what options we are displaying. So let me go back to the designer in my example project as well. Inside of that vertical box, we can grab a border. So we have the scroll box over here. Let's drop the border on top of it. So now the scroll box is above the border. So let's make the border the first one by simply dragging it on top of there. I'm gonna hide the border host game for now, so that looks a little bit better. And then we want to put some text variables in here, so we can probably copy those over here. Let's grab a text and copy, go back to the border over here, and we're gonna paste it. So that'll resize the border as well. First of all, let's make the border black so we can actually see something. So let's select the brush color, make it black, and then the alpha is 0.7. So there we go. We probably want to shrink the text down a little bit, and we also want to wrap the actual text over here that we just added in a horizontal box. So let's right click the text, wrap width, and then go to horizontal box. So the border is stretching, the horizontal box is not. So let's select the horizontal box and make sure that it's set to fill, both horizontally and vertically. And then let's go back to the text. Well, let me shrink the text down a little bit. I'm using 18 in my example project. And then the first thing that we're going to add here is the name. So simply type name. This doesn't have to be a variable, that's fine. And for the alignment, let me check my example project. So we're going to set this one to fill and then make sure it's also fitting horizontally and vertically. The next thing we want to add is the text for the players. So we can duplicate this one, grab the second one and simply type players. And let me check the alignment. So the alignment should be good. Then we're going to add a third text in here, and this is going to say private. So this is if we have a password, if this is friends only or not. So you could say friends only if you want to. I'm calling this private, whatever you like. Again, alignment should be good. Then the next one is going to be password. So let's duplicate it again and let's change the text. And then the last one is going to be the ping, although that's not actually working at the moment. Let's just add it for now. So let's duplicate the text again and call this ping. And then for the last one, this should... we want to adjust the justification over here. So the alignment is good. And then we're going to go to the justification for the ping and set it to centered. And that should also be done for the other ones. Let me double check. Yeah, so we want to grab the players, the private and the password as well. And for those three, we're also going to set the justification to center and leave the name to left. So that should be good to go. Now if we select the scroll box, let's make sure this one is set to fill as well. And then we are finally good to go in our designer. So this is always a bit tedious, but well, it has to be done. So compile and save, and we're going to go to the graph and make that work. So in the event graph, we want to start with the input box for the password. So if we look at the actual event graph, we have an onText committed for the server name over here, and we want to expand this a little bit. So let's make sure we have a bit of room around this. So I'm going to move it to an empty spot. The first thing we want to do is grab the input password. So that's the actual input box, and we're going to add the onText committed for the password as well. So obviously it moves it way out of line, so we're going to put it right here. If we change the password, we also want to double check the server name. So we might have typed the server name first and then entered the password and maybe deleted the server name after that. So we're going to make sure that both of the boxes are actually valid. So first of all, we're simply going to plug it in over here. Then we want to go to this branch and we're going to disconnect the top pin over here and move this out of the way. So if this actual server name is valid, then we're going to check if we also use a password. So we're going to add a second branch over here, plug this into the true pin, and we can grab our checkbox use password, drag over here and get is checked. So we're simply going to type check the current status and plug it into the branch over here. So if we're not using a password, we can grab the false pin and simply plug it back into the set enabled node that was already here. And if we are using a password, then we're going to check if the password is valid. So I'm simply going to use the same isValidName input function. You can create a separate one for the password if you have different conditions. So we're going to grab this one and we want to plug in the input password over here. So plug that one into the target and then drag over here and get the text and plug that into the name input. So now we can decide if this is usable or not. So we're going to grab a branch and plug in the isValid name. So if the name is valid, if this is true, then we can also hook it up to the existing setEnabled node that was already here. And if the password is not valid, then we're going to grab our input password box. So let's grab it over here. And we're simply going to clear the text in there because it's not valid. So we're going to say set text and leave the actual text field empty. And then we want to disable the accept button for creating a host. So to make sure if it's somehow enabled, we're going to disable it so we cannot create a session. So we're going to grab the button accept create host, drag it in here and say set enabled. And make sure we set it to false. So that should be for the input and that should be good to go. Now we're going to add an check state changed. So I'm sorry, tripped over my own words. For the checkbox password. So if we select that over here, checkbox use password and add the onCheck state changed event. So let's move that over here as well. Over here. And so we can simply grab a setEnabled node. So let's do that first. We're going to grab the input password and we're going to setEnabled. And simply plug in the isChecked. And after that, we're going to grab a branch, plug it in, and also plug in the isChecked condition. And then again, we want to disable the host button if we just enable the checkbox. So we're going to grab the button accept create host, plug it into the true pin and disable it. And if we actually disable the password after it's enabled, we're simply going to clear the text. So we're going to grab the input password and over here clear the text box. So if we turn it off, then we're going to make sure there's no text in the text box as well. Okay, so that should be good to go. And then there's actually one thing left to do in here, and that's if we click the accept create host. So let's go to that onClicked event, button accept create host, onClicked. And over here we have the new options that we need to pass on. So we can simply grab the checkboxes and plug in the onChecked state in there. So there's actually a fly flying around me and it's really annoying, so I'm sorry. I'm getting a bit distracted. Okay, so ignore the fly. We're going to grab the checkbox friends only, and for this one we're going to get isChecked. So we want to plug that in over here and do the same thing for the checkbox use password. So again, drag it in and we're going to get if it's checked and then plug it in. And we can grab the input password over here and get the text from there. And this will convert the text into a string, so we can simply plug it in as well. Okay, that's good to go. That's the multiplayer menu for now. No, we need to plug in the actual checkbox. There we go. And now we can do a little bit of stuff in our menu game mode, and then unfortunately we have to create a few widgets again. Let's go to the framework folder and open our menu game mode. So in the event graph, we want to take a look at the event handle starting new player over here. So we want to change up how this works, but we also want to make sure that we have the options that we set on the actual session, that we pass them on to the game mode so we can simply access them. So let's do that first, and we're going to do that on begin play. So on the right side over here, we're going to add begin play. And then if we go over here, we can grab the get current level name and the switch on string. So let's make sure we do that first. And we want to plug that in into begin play. So we're only loading the lobby options if we're actually in the lobby. And then I'm going to create a function to get the options. So let's create a new function and call this get lobby options. So in here we can get the session settings, and from there we can get the options that we set. So let's get the session settings over here. I was double checking that I got the correct one, but this is the one you want. So this looks like a latent node, but there is no little clock sign over here, and it's actually working inside of a function. So we're simply going to use it, and that should be good to go. So we have the extra settings over here, and we can get the property bool that we assigned in the game instance. So let's get the property bool. We want to plug this into the onSuccess pin, and then make sure there are no typos for the setting name. So also it's case sensitive. So I'm just going to copy and paste it in case I made a typo over here. So first of all, we're going to grab the friends only, paste that in here. And then we're simply going to promote this to a variable. So drag off here, promote, and this is going to be the lobby setting, and then friends only. So we can plug this one into the found pin and then simply hook up the setting value. And then we're going to grab a second setter and hook that up to not found or wrong type. And then we're simply going to disable it. So we can do the same thing for using a password. So let's grab this one and paste it over here, plug it in, make sure you plug in the extra settings. There we go. And in this case, we want to get the second setting, so the use password. I'm going to copy and paste it again. And we're going to promote the setting to a variable. So this is the lobby use password. Again, this goes into the found pin to hook up the setting value, and then we're going to grab a second one and plug that into the not found and wrong type, and this is set to false. So after that we need the actual password, and that was a string, so we can drag off the extra settings again and this time look for a string. So we only need to plug this into the use password one, so the upper one, and we're going to ignore the lower one for now. So we want to grab the correct name, so let's copy and paste it. And again, we're going to promote this to a variable. So this is our lobby password. And plug this one in the row found pin, copy and paste it, and plug those in the other two. And we're also going to plug in the false one from here into the empty password, so we don't need to set a password if we're not using it. And that should be all in here. So let's get a return node. And that's the function. So we can go back to the event graph, and for begin play, if this is the actual lobby map, we're going to get the lobby options and plug it in over here. So that's part one. And then the second thing we're going to do is go to the event handle starting new player, and we're going to replace this with our own event. So let's create a custom event, and I'm going to call this start game for controller. And I'm going to give this one input, and for now that's a normal player controller. So let's player controller, and then the type is also just a normal player controller over here. So now we can simply move over the pins. So we're casting it later to the menu controller, but we're going to take care of that in a little bit. For now, we simply want to have this set up. And now we are good to go. We can't really do anything more in here until we added some other stuff first. So let's compile and save, and we're going to make a few widgets again. Yay! So we're going to create two simple widgets, so this shouldn't be too bad. Let's go to the widgets folder, right click, no, let's not right click, let's copy an existing one. So I'm going to grab the pass menu again because there's not too much in there, and I'm going to duplicate it. So the first one is going to be the widget blueprint friends only. And let's open it up. So we can get rid of the buttons, we don't need them. We're going to keep the header, so we got that. And let's make sure that in the graph we actually delete everything in here, so we're not going to get any errors. So that's good to go. Let's change the text in here, and I'm going to say a private server. There we go. And then we're going to make this pretty simple. So I'm going to grab a border and drop it on top of the canvas panel. So this is going to be a background. So let's select the border. Let's anchor it full screen. So on the bottom right over here. And then we can set all of the offsets to 0. So it'll actually be full screen. And I'm going to make this border black. So simply make it completely black and keep the alpha at 1 so we can't see anything happening behind it. So we want to drag it on top of the other border so we can actually see the name over here. And that's good to go. Then we're going to grab a second border and we're going to drop this on top of the canvas panel over here. So let's select this border and let's align it. So let me see. We're going to anchor it to the center of the screen, and then I'm going to say 0, 0. I'm going to set the size to 340 by 210, and then the alignment is 0.5, 0.5. So for this border, I'm going to reduce the alpha a little bit, so 0.5. This is just the default border color, as you can see over here. In this border, I'm going to add a second border, so drop it on top of here again, and this border is going to be black, so I want to make this black, and then 0.7. So again, this is just the default style for this project, and in here I'm going to add some text, so drop it on top of the second border. And what I want to do in here, let's copy the font over here, copy, select this text, paste it, and then shrink it down. So make it 20 or 18, something like that. And in here, I'm simply going to say, this is a private server and you're going to be disconnected. So I'm going to copy this from my other project, paste it in here or not. There we go. So this is a private friends only server. You will be disconnected. So this is in case somebody is actually trying to access your server, but he's not on your friends list. So the sizes aren't really that great. We can shrink it down a bit. Well, that should be good to go. That's fine. So this is really all we need to do in here. So this is simply to tell the player he can't enter this match or this lobby and he's going to be disconnected. Compile and save it. And let's close it down, and we're going to duplicate this widget. And the second one is going to be our password menu. So widget blueprint, password menu. And again, let's set up the designer first. So we can actually get rid of this part, the borders with the text. We don't need that one. And I'm going to change the text in here to say something like password protection. Yeah, why not? And then we want to grab a box with some inputs, so we can actually get that from the main menu, for example. So let's open up our main menu to save a little bit of time and work. So we can grab this border with the input and the buttons. That should save us some time. So that's the border new profile over here. Right click and let's copy it. Go back to your password menu and paste it on top of the canvas panel. So first of all, let's align it to the center. So simply 0.5, 0.5, and we can move it up a little bit. So maybe minus 150, minus 100. Yeah, that's fine. So we might actually want to wrap this in a white border so we can see it a little bit better. So let's right click border new profile, wrap it with a border, select this border, and I'm going to set the alpha to 0.5 again. There we go. So we want to change a bit of text over here. So we don't actually need this upper text, to be honest. So let's get rid of the create new save. And then for the text save slot name, I'm gonna say enter password. So we can select the input box and change the hint text to be password as well. And then we obviously have the cancel and accept buttons. We want to keep those. So that should be good to go. We can rename these variables. So let's grab the input player name and make sure this says input password so we don't get confused. And the border new profile doesn't need to be a variable. So let's disable that one. And this should do it. So let's just compile and save it. So we need to do a bit of setup in the graph, but we also need to set up some other stuff first. So let's continue in the menu controller, and we're going to get back to setting up the graph for this widget later. So let's make sure everything is compiled and saved and close it down. And we're going to go to the framework folder and open our menu controller. So in here, we want to do some stuff in the event graph. So let me clean up this mess a little bit. And we're going to go to an empty spot on the event graph. And in here, we're going to add some functions. So I'll be back in a sec, switching my notes. Okay, I'm back. So first of all, we need to add two functions to show and hide the password menu. So let's grab the UI show lobby menu, for example, and let's duplicate this one. So this is going to be show password menu. And in here, first of all, let's get rid of the lobby menu references. So all three of those. And then after the add to viewport, we can get rid of that stuff as well. We don't need it. So we simply want to create the widget and add it to the viewport, and that's it. So we have the isValid node, create a widget. We want to change the widget over here to the password menu. And then promote it to a variable. So this is our widget blueprint password menu. So we can hook everything back up, plug this in the back to add to viewport. Make sure we plug it in over here as the password menu. And duplicate it and paste it in the isValid node as well. So that's show password menu, and now we also want to remove the password menu. So let's duplicate this one and call this remove password menu. So we can check if it's valid. We don't need to create the widget, so let's get rid of this one and also add viewport, obviously. So if it's valid, we can remove it from parent. So remove from parent, plug this one into this valid bin. And then we're going to grab the actual variable and simply clear that. And we can plug that into both of the bins. That should work fine. And then we can return. So that's all we need to do in here. Let's compile and save. And now we can go back to the event graph. And we actually need to create replicated events because the server is handling all of the options and the password stuff. So the server needs to tell the client to create the widget. So we need to grab a custom event. And I'm going to call this show password menu. So this needs to be set to replicate run on the owning client. So it's called from the server. And we can simply call the UI show password menu in here. And we want to do the same thing for removing the menu. So again, create a custom event. And this is going to be remove password menu. Again, this needs to replicate to run on the owning client. And then we're going to remove the password menu. So that's good to go as well. Then we want to grab an event that we can call if we entered the wrong password. So let's create a custom event again and simply call this enter the wrong password. Again, this is going to run on the owning client. So replicates run on owning client. And we're simply going to tell the client that the password is not correct. So first of all, let's grab our password menu over here. And from the password menu widget, we can get the input box for the password. So input password over here. And we're going to disable it for now. So set enabled and simply leave it to false. Then we're gonna set the text inside of the input box. So let's drag off the input password and set text. And for this, I'm gonna say wrong password. So simply type it in over here, wrong password. There we go. And let's make the text red as well, so it stands out a little bit. So I'm gonna drag off the input password again, and I'm gonna get the style. And then if I drag off the style, I'm gonna set the members. And this will pop up in editable text style. So plug that in first. With the node selected on the right side, we want to enable the color and opacity. Then drag off here and make a slate color. And I'm simply going to make the text red. Over here. So then we want to drag off the input password again and set the style. And plug in the out struct over here and hook it up. So now the text is red, it says wrong password. So I'm gonna add a small delay in here, about 2 or 3 seconds. So let's make it 3 seconds. And then we wanna re-enable everything so the player can try again. So basically we just wanna grab all of this stuff over here, copy it and paste it after the delay. So we're gonna re-enable the input box. Then we're gonna clear the text so we can get rid of all of this stuff. So the text is simply empty again, and then we want to make the text white. So let's select the color and make it back to our default color. And that should be good to go. So that's the entered wrong password. And then we also want to create an event that we can call to verify the password. So let's create another custom event and call this a verify password. So this one is going to execute on the server, and it's going to be called from the widget of the owning client. So for replication, we're going to say run on server. And then because we are the server, we can actually access the game mode. So we're going to get the game mode and we want to cast it to our menu game mode. And on here we have the current password. So we're going to drag off the menu game mode and get the lobby password. So the string. And with the string over here, we can compare it. So let's drag off here and look for 3 equal signs. So we have equal exactly. So it's also case sensitive. And then we want to compare it. So we're going to simply plug this into the event as an input. Drag it onto the event and make sure we rename it. So that's the password. And then we can handle depending on the result over here. So let's plug it in, and this is our condition. So if this is false, the player entered the wrong password. So we can simply call the entered the wrong password event that we just created. And if this is true, the player actually entered the correct password. So then we're going to grab the menu game mode and call our new start game for controller event. So this is in the true pin, and the player controller is a reference to our self. So plug in self. And then we want to remove the password menu. So in this case, we actually need to call the replicated event because currently we're running on the server. So we cannot call UI remove password, but we want to call the remove password replicated event over here. That's good to go as well. So there's one more custom event that we need in here. So let's create the last one, custom event. And this is going to be private server disconnect. So private server disconnect. Again, for the replication of this one, we're going to set it to run on the owning client. So this is when somebody is trying to enter the lobby that's not on my friends list, the server can call this to tell the client he needs to back off, basically. So we're going to create a widget, drag off here, create a widget. And we want to create our friends only widget. So let's look for friends only. The owning player is a reference to ourselves, so we can simply plug in self. And then we're going to grab the return value and simply add it to the viewport. So we're not going to store any references. That's not really needed. We're going to show the widget for 2 or 3 seconds. So let's add a delay in here and make this 3 seconds. And then we simply want to destroy the session of this player. So we can right click and look for destroy session. Plug this into the completed bin. Again, the player controller is a reference to ourselves, so plug that one in. And on success, we can grab the widget and make sure we remove that as well. So let's drag off the return value from the widget and remove this from parent. So this goes into the on success bin. And after that, we want to send the player back to the main menu. So we're going to drag off here and open level by name. And we simply want to open our main menu level, so that should be main menu map. Pretty sure. Let me double check. Maps, menu. Yeah, over here, main menu map. So that should be good to go. Okay. So those are all the events we need inside of the menu controller. So let's make sure we have this compiled and saved. And with that stuff in place, we can actually go back to the widget password menu and set up the last things in there. So let's close this one down and let's go back to the widgets folder. Widget password menu over here and go to the graph. So let me grab my notes in here. This shouldn't be too bad. The first thing we want to do is grab an event construct. And for event construct, I'm simply going to set the focus to the input password box. So it's a little bit user friendly. So we don't have to click the box, but we can immediately start typing. So let's grab input password and then set keyboard focus over here and simply plug it in. So that's all we're going to do for construct. And then we need to have the cancel and accept buttons. So first of all, let's grab the cancel button and add an on-clicked event. For this one, we want to grab our menu controller and simply end the session. So we don't know the correct password maybe, or we decided we don't want to enter the lobby. So we're going to click cancel and then go back to the main menu. So we're going to get the owning player of this widget. And in this case, that's the menu controller. So we can cast it to the menu controller. And then on here, we have a replicated event that will end the client session. So we can simply drag off here and do end client session to call that one. And then we want to remove the password menu as well, but we're actually the owning client of that menu, so we don't need to call the replicated event. We can simply drag off the menu controller and then call the UI remove password menu. So that's the function, and hook that up as well. That's the cancel button, and for the confirm button, we want to make sure that we verify the password that the player entered. So we're going to grab the accept or confirm, whatever. And again, we want to get the menu controller. So we're going to get our owning player and cast it to our menu controller. And in this case, we want to call the verify password event that we just created. And for this, we can simply grab the input box and get the text that's in there. So let's get the text and plug it in. And that should make everything work. So that's the graph over here. Let's compile and save that as well. And now we need to go back to the menu GameMode to finish our new Start Game for Controller event. If you liked the video, please consider leaving a like and drop a comment down below if you know what movie inspired me to make this little clip. So in the framework folder, menu GameMode, and we were working on the event handle starting new player and our new event. So we want to wrap this up, and so this is the event that's automatically being called when a new player enters the lobby in this case. So what we're going to do over here is decide if this player is actually allowed to enter the lobby, and if he is allowed to, then we're going to call our Start Game for Controller event. but there's one thing we need to take care of, and that's over here in the beginning. So we're actually adding these controllers to the all connected controllers or players array, and we're immediately creating these entries in the other arrays as well. And we actually want to do that immediately if we this event fires, if the handle starting new player fires, because for example, if the second player that enters takes longer to actually enter the password, so the first player is entering it immediately in 2 or 3 seconds and the second player is stuck in the menu for a while, then the indexes won't match up anymore. So we want to do this part immediately and then make sure that we only let them enter the game if they are allowed to, and if not, they're going to log out, and that will make sure that the other arrays will keep matching up as well. So what we're going to do in here, let's disconnect the player controller reference over here. And for this, we actually want to change it to a menu controller. So let's change the type and look for menu. So the BP menu controller. Then we're going to grab all of these nodes. So let's grab the get current level name, switch on string, cast to menu controller, all connected controllers add, and then also the 2 set array element nodes. So we're going to get all of those and only keep the create lobby and initial setup over here. So let's cut this, and then we're going to go to our event handle starting new player. And we're going to paste all of that stuff. Plug it in over here. So make sure we plug in the new player to the cast over here. There we go. And then as menu controller, we need to have this stuff hooked up as well. So that got lost when we cut and paste it. So this should be good to go. And the index is set items. So that's good. Then we can go back to the start game for controller and make sure that we hook this up. So this goes directly into the create lobby menu pin. And then we can clean this up a little bit as well. And these should match because we changed this into a menu controller, so we can directly hook them up over here. So we have create lobby menu, initial setup, and then check on the game mode. And if we are team deathmatch, we're going to check team IDs. So that's what was already here. Then we can go back to our event handle starting new player. And after we did all of this initial setup, we're going to check if the player is allowed to enter. So the first thing we're going to do in here is grab a branch, plug it in, and we're going to grab the index from the add node and compare it. So if this is the host, he's always allowed to enter. So index 0, plug it in over here. If that's true, that means the player is the host. So then we can simply call our start game for controller. And for the player controller, we can simply grab it over here and hook it up. So that's the result of the cast node. And if this is actually not the host, then we want to verify some things. So we're going to grab a second branch, plug it in over here. And first of all, we're going to check if this is a friends only lobby. So we have that stored in our bool, plug it in over here. If this is true, we can check it with a second branch. So let's grab a second branch, plug it into the true pin. And then we're going to get all of our connected players. And from here, we're going to get an index, and we're going to get index 0. So we're going to get the player controller of the host. And then we can drag off here, and we have a function called isAFriend. So we can simply call this. And then we need the unique net ID of the player. That's our potential friend. So we can drag off the cast to menu controller over here. And from here we can get the unique net ID and simply plug that in. So if this player is a friend, this will return true. So we can plug this into the second branch. Like so. And then we can check if we are using a password. So we're going to grab a third branch, the false pin from the friends only branch goes in here, and then the true pin from the friends check also goes in here. So maybe you want to have a friends only lobby but also add a password, so you can do that. So over here we're going to check if this is lobby use password, if that's true or not. So if we're not using a password, we can let the player start the game. So then we can call our start game for controller, hook it up to the false pin, and make sure we plug in our player controller again. So that's the player controller from the cast to menu controller. And if we are using a password, then we need to get our password menu on screen. So now we can drag off the menu controller again and simply call our show password menu. And in this case, we need to replicate it event because we are the server and we want to tell the client to do it. So we're going to call the show password menu and not the UI one. Plug this one into the true pin. So that will handle the password section. And then we have one branch left over here. So that's if someone is trying to connect to a friends only lobby, but he's not actually a friend. So in that case, we're going to drag off the menu controller again, and we're going to call our private server disconnect event and hook that up to the false pin over here. So that should take care of all of the different options that we have. So this is the host, he's going to enter always. This is a private lobby and he's not allowed to enter. This is a password lobby and this is a friends only lobby with a password. For this, the target is the game mode, so that's good to go. Yeah, so this event should be done as well. We changed the input type and hooked up the handle starting new player stuff. So this should be good to go. We can compile and save. And there's one thing left to do in the server row widget. And then we should be good to go. So let's make sure we have everything saved. Why not? We're going to go back to the widgets folder and open our widget server row. So as you might have remembered, we added the header to the server search list. So we want to add the new options for use password and friends only in here as well. And now that I come to think of it, I might have forgotten to increase the size. So let's go to our MP menu. And for the actual size of this border over here, so that's the border server list, I want to make it a little bit bigger. So currently it's 750 and I'm going to make it 850. Like so. Then compile and save. And then we can go back to the server row. And if we select the button over here, we also have it set to 750. So I'm going to increase this to 850 as well. Then we can grab the text ping because that one has the correct alignment set. And we're going to duplicate it. Duplicate it twice actually. So make sure the ping is the last one. So I'm going to move that one back down. And then the first one that were added over here, that's the private server. So text friends only. And the second one is the text use password. Oh, really? Okay. There we go. Let me grab my notes quickly because I messed up over there. So I'm simply going to use yes or no. So for now, let's type yes and yes. Why not? We're going to make sure it's correct in the actual graph. So let's go to the graph. And for the update server row info, we're simply going to go to the end and retrieve the options from the settings of our session and make sure that everything is filled in correctly. So we can go to the beginning over here where we actually have the extra settings gather, drag off here, and we're gonna get a bool first. So let's get a bool, session property bool, plug it in, and we want to know if this is the friends only one. So let's make sure we copy and paste it again to avoid typos because I'm really good with typos. Friends only, go back to the server row, paste it in here. And then we can grab a set text for the text friends only. So let's do this one and do set text. So plug this one into the found pin and then drag off the text. And I'm going to say select. So this will give us a wildcard over here, but we can simply plug in a boolean and then we have a false and a true option. So for false, I'm going to say use friends only no, and for true, I'm going to say friends only yes. Simple as that. And in case we can't find anything, I'm going to copy and paste the node, hook it up to the not found or wrong type, and simply type no. So the target, hook it up over here, and that's good to go. And then we can do the same thing for the password. So let's get another session property bool. Make sure we actually plug in the extra settings over here. In this case, we want to get the use password bool. Like so. And then we can get all of these nodes, paste them over here. So this goes into the found bin and the bottom one goes into not found and wrong type. Make sure we plug in the bool over here. We're going to grab our text use password and make sure we hook it up to both of the targets. And then the rest should be good to go. Okay, so we can compile and save the widget as well. And I think everything is done. So again, I'm gonna package the project, copy it to my other PC and make sure it's working and show you guys as well. I'll be back in a sec. So the packaged game is running and I'm also running it on my other PC. So let's try some stuff and see if it's working. We're going to go to the multiplayer menu and first of all let's click host game. So all of this looks good. We have the checkboxes and all of that stuff in place and we probably cannot enable anything if we don't have anything valid typed in here. So let's enter a name. I don't have use password enabled, so I can accept now. That's good. If I enable my use password, the button will be turned gray and I actually need to enter a password here. Then that will accept. And if I clear the name afterwards, it's also going to disable the accept button. So that seems to be working. If I disable this, the password is cleared. So for all of that stuff, I think we're good to go. So I'm actually hosting a session on the other PC that's password protected. So I'm going to search for an online session. So we have our new server list over here with the options as well. Private server no, password yes. So that seems to be good as well. Let me try and join this session. Okay, and we actually messed up something over here. So that's probably the visibility of the boxes because we copied them from the main menu. So that kind of sucks. So I'm stuck in the menu right now. Okay, so we need to fix that. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, back in the project. Let's have a look at the widget. So we're going to go to the widgets folder. And in this case, we want to go to the password menu. So let's check the visibility over here. Let's start with the border. So the border is visible. Border new profile is actually hidden. So let's grab the visibility over here and make sure that this is visible. And the rest, I think we should be good to go. So this is not testable. That's fine. Visible. Yeah, the rest should be good to go. Okay, so that was pretty lame. I need to package it again and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so we're back up and running. Let's have a second look. So again, the session is running on the other PC and that's password protected. So we already verified this is working. Let's search for a game. And let's try and join it. And hopefully it works this time. So here we have the enter password section. So first of all, let's type in a wrong password and accept. So that's a wrong password. That's working. And we can try again if we want to. So that's fine. So if we cancel, it will simply destroy our own session and go back to the main menu. So that should pretty much work. That's not too difficult. Let's type in the correct password. So game dev raw. And then accept. And I should be in the lobby. So that's working. So that's the password protection part. And now we probably also want to test the friends only part. So for that, I need to remove myself from my friends list. So I'm going to pause this and be back in a sec. Okay, so back again. This time the friends list is empty, so I don't have any friends anymore. And I'm hosting a session on the other PC that's set to private. So let's search for a game, and we can actually find it. So the other session, I'm not sure where that comes from. I need to take a look into that, because that's not really my session. I don't have it set to 100. Ah, well. So we have the private session over here. Let's try and enter it. I'm not a friend, so I shouldn't be allowed to. And we have this pop up, a private server, you will be disconnected, and I'm going back to the main menu. So that part is actually working as well. So that's all I got for you guys today. There is a side note, by the way. We set all of this up to work in the lobby, but we also need to make this work in-game. So if a player is joining in-game, these settings don't have any effect yet. We're gonna take a look at that in the next episode, because we need to do all of that inside of the shooter game mode. Okay, so that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon for more. Later, guys.